This is why you should always sit in the back seat. Vivian was spending a year in Korea when something terrifying happened. One night she was going out with her two roommates who spoke Korean, and at the end of the night they decided to get a taxi home. Vivian sat in the front and her two roommates sat in the back. This would be her first mistake. The driver spoke really good English and began telling jokes. Vivian found them really funny but soon realized that her roommates weren't laughing. In fact, they had a strange expression on their faces. Vivian said what's wrong, but they wouldn't answer. Suddenly, one of her roommates said something to the driver in Korean and he pulled over on the side of the road. Vivian knew something was wrong. They weren't anywhere near their apartment, but her roommates got out of the taxi and started walking away quickly. Vivian paid the driver, then got out to follow them. And that's when she found out the truth. Her roommate said, "Did you hear it? It was coming from the trunk of the taxi. A woman's voice saying, 'Help me, help me.'"
I'm going to be telling you a true scary story about the children who lived in my woods called the Lost Boys. As a kid, I would always play in the woods behind my house. And as a kid, I loved playing in them because I had a whole bunch of friends who lived in the woods. And you might be thinking, kids don't live in the woods. And that's exactly right, because they were actual ghosts. But as a kid, I did not know that. I would go out every single day, and there was about 10 boys who would play with me. We would build tree forts, we would play hide and seek, chase, everything. I invited them over for dinner all the time, but they told me that they couldn't leave, that they were stuck in the woods. I didn't understand, but I just let them be. I would always bring my friends out there, and none of them could see them. Everyone just told me I was crazy. But that was until I went missing for 2 days because one of the boys told me to come with him. So I did. He took me really, really far back into the woods, and I was super lost. And things started to go really bad. Stay tuned for part 2.
Cold as clay. This one was another one that was really creepy to me when I was little. So the story goes, there was a young woman who lived on a farm with her dad, the farmer. Well, she started seeing a young man named Jim, but the dad didn't think Jim was good enough for her, so he actually sent his daughter to the other side of town to live with her uncle. Soon after the girl got sent away, Jim got sick and he wasted away and died. Some people claim that Jim died of a broken heart. Well, the girl's dad knew that this would break her heart if she knew that Jim had passed away, so he decided not to tell her. One night there was a knock on the girl's front door. She answered the door and it was Jim. He said that there was an emergency and that her father had sent him to go get her. So they went outside, they got on Jim's horse, and they started riding to the other end of town to the girl's father's house. When they were riding on the horse, Jim started complaining of a horrible headache, saying it aches something terrible. The girl felt his forehead and said, "Jim, you're cold as clay. I hope you're not getting sick." She took a handkerchief and tied it right around Jim's head. So they rode and rode, and soon enough they reached her father's farm. The girl got off the horse and went and knocked on the front door, and when her father opened the door, he was startled to see her. He asked her what she was doing there, how she got there, etc. She said, "Didn't you send for me?" "Jim rode me here. He said you sent for me." That's when the father knew that he had to tell the girl the truth about Jim, so he told her the truth that Jim had passed away. They went outside to look for Jim and the horse, but they were both gone, so they went to the stable to look and see if the horse was there, and the horse was there, shivering with fear. But Jim was nowhere in sight. So the girl and her father went over to Jim's parents' house. The girl told Jim's parents what happened, and they decided to open his grave. When they opened his grave, they saw Jim wasting away like a skeleton, except this time, the handkerchief was still tied around his head.
The Pale Lady. Well, in my book, this one's actually called The Dream, but same story. So the story goes like there was a young woman named Lucy Morgan who was a traveling artist. She had been staying in a small town for a few days painting, and she decided that the next day she would move on to a town called Kingston. But that night, however, Lucy Morgan had a disturbing dream. She dreamt that she was in a small house with a dark, twisted staircase. She was in the bedroom of the house when this woman walked through the bedroom door. The woman had a small, twisted-up face with long, stringy black hair and skin so pale it looked like a sheet of paper. The woman approached Lucy Morgan and said, "This place is evil. Get out while you can." When Lucy woke up from this dream, she decided that she wouldn't go to Kingston after all because she thought that this dream somehow had a correlation with Kingston being evil. She told her landlady that she wasn't going to Kingston after all, and the landlady suggested she go to another town not too far away called Dorset. That day, Lucy packed up her things and she went off to Dorset. When Lucy got to town, somebody told her that she could find a room for rent in a house at the top of the hill. Lucy got to the house and the landlady told her that she would show her the room, so they started towards the staircase, and that's when Lucy realized that the staircase of this house was the exact same dark woven staircase in her dream. It's just a coincidence, she thought, so they started towards the bedroom, and when they reached the bedroom, Lucy realized it was the exact bedroom from her dream. The landlady asked her if she was interested in the room, and Lucy said, well, I just don't know right now. The landlady said, that's fine, just think about it for a while. I'll go bring you some tea while you sit in here and think about it. The landlady left the room, and Lucy was just sitting in there on the corner of the bed, when a few minutes later, she heard a knock at the door, and she thought, it's just the landlady bringing in my tea. Well, the door opened, and the woman who entered the room was not the landlady. Instead, it was this woman, the pale lady from Lucy's dream. She crept toward Lucy with this grin on her face. Lucy Morgan grabbed all of her things and fled.
I think we all ask ourselves at some point, what really goes on around me when I'm sleeping? And one lady went to find out, and I think she regretted it. Hey everybody, I know my channel is all about humor and fun and stuff like that, but it's Halloween, so I thought I'd do a few scary videos. I hope you like it. A few years ago, a woman by the name of Jenny was having a little bit of trouble sleeping. So she had decided to download an app on her phone, an app that would track her sleeping patterns, have a built-in recorder if she ever started sleep talking or snoring, something that would explain any type of sleeping problem she may have. Now, Jenny lived alone with her 3-year-old son, so it's important to note that there was no other people that she was living with at this time. Jenny had used the app for 3 months prior to this with no incident or nothing weird happening whatsoever. Now, Jenny made it a habit to review every single thing that was recorded, every single statistic that was documented every single morning, just for her own well-being. One morning, upon reviewing her audio, she found something extremely disturbing. On December 30th, around 2:04 a.m., she recorded some sounds that were coming from inside her room. Now, in the audio, you hear this weird clicking sound and some shuffling. Now, we don't really know where this is coming from, but it is significant. After a couple seconds of this, you hear Jenny say, "What are you doing?" In which a male voice replies back, "Nothing." And then the clicking continues, and then that same voice says, "They're here." There was no man inside of her house at this time. Jenny has no memory of this whatsoever. Here's the audio. What do you think?
What are you doing?
Me Tai Do T Walker. So many of you guys have been asking me to do this one. This is another really weird story from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. So this one goes like there was an old haunted house in the town. Everybody heard the rumors about how it was haunted and how a bloody head fell down the chimney every night. From time to time, people had tried staying the night as a dare, but nobody could ever stay the whole night at this house. Until one day, a very wealthy man in town offered a generous cash prize to anybody who was willing to spend the entire night from sundown to sunrise in this house. A boy volunteered and said he would stay in the house if on one condition he could have his dog with him. So the boy and his dog went to the house and they set up a fire in the fireplace and just got ready for the night. Everything was going smoothly, nothing spooky was happening until the evening. The boy heard a voice coming from the woods outside. It was a very distant voice in the woods, and it said, "Me Tai Do T Walker." After this voice rang out, the boy's dog spoke back and said, "Lynchy Kinchy, Collie Molly, Dingo Dingo." Obviously, the boy was in shock because his dog had just spoken words. A few minutes later, the voice rang out again, but this time it was closer, and it said, "Me Tai Do T Walker." The boy tried to stop his dog from answering this time, but the dog paid no attention to the boy, and he sat up again and said, "Lynchy Kinchy, Collie Molly, Dingo Dingo." 30 minutes later, the boy heard the noise again, but this time it was in the backyard, and it sang out, "Me Tai Do T Walker." The dog responded, now louder than ever, and said once again, "Lynchy Kinchy, Collie Molly, Dingo Dingo." The boy heard the voice crying out, "Me Tai Do T Walker," but this time it was coming down the chimney. Suddenly, a bloody head fell down the chimney, missed the fire, and rolled right next to the dog. The head turned around, stared at the boy, and screamed.
Scary stalkers caught on camera. This video shows a girl while recording a man with a face mask following her on the road. Initially, she thought that he might be someone walking in the same direction, so she slowed down to let him walk past her, but the guy slowed down with her. For 45 minutes, the girl walked in circles around several blocks until she arrived at a skating park and approached a group of strangers. She asked them to help her and told them what was going on, finally getting rid of the man when someone tried to confront him about his actions.